So thank you for that introduction. So I'm here to talk to you about, this is called the Shofar, and what it represents for us as Jews around the New Year. I want to share a little bit about the New Year itself. We say Shana Tova, which is a short form, just says Happy New Year, but we also say a longer form, which is L'Shana Tova Tikatevu, which is actually a longer, it means may you be inscribed in the book of life for a good year. And the Jewish New Year is not it's not like the secular New Year. It's not just about celebrating that we're turning over a new year. It's actually the opening of a 10-day period that runs between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And that's called the Days of Awe, A-W-E. And it's a period of introspection and reflection and thinking about who we are and how we are in the world and who we want to be in the next year. So we do celebrate it as definitely a time to come together with family and friends. Often we'll have celebrate with dinner. This year, of course, is a little different. In my house, we managed to have 2 couples over. We're empty nesters, so we put out 3 tables out in our driveway, all appropriately spaced, but at least we could be together in some way. So Rosh Hashanah, as Bruce mentioned, our Jewish holidays start at sunset and run through sunset of the next day. So Rosh Hashanah ran from last Friday evening through last Saturday evening. Yom Kippur, which is the end of the Days of Awe, runs from Sunday evening, this coming Sunday evening, through Monday evening. And the whole period is really the high holidays. It's not 2 distinct days. It's really the opening and closing of a period, like I said, of introspection and reflection. So the shofar is an instrument, I suppose. It's a hollowed out horn from an animal. I'm not exactly sure what kind of animal this is, but if you can imagine something out there living its life with 2 of these, I think we actually wait till they fall off, right? I think we don't harvest them.
We don't harvest them.
We don't. It's not you kill the animal for meat and then use its horns. I think they actually go out and collect them. So they do fall off every year, and they hollow them out so you can see that there's a little hole on this end. That's the end it'll blow into, and there's a much bigger end. And you can see why we do not need a microphone when we do this blowing. The idea is that if you think about back to ancient days, in the hills, particularly, say, surrounding Jerusalem, people didn't have clocks and they didn't have phones that were accurate to the millionth of a second. They were never quite sure what day it was, and so the shofar some people would go up on hillsides and they'd blow this as a signal that, hey, the new year has arrived. It is time to come to temple. It's time to start this period of introspection and reflection. So there are different calls, and you'll hear the different sounds that we'll make. Tekiah is 1 blast. It's a few seconds long. Shivarim is 3 blasts, and the idea is the total is about the same length of time as Tekiah. There's Teruah, which is 9 very short, like snap kind of sounds. And then at the very end, you do something called Tekiah Gedolah, which is as long as you can hold it. And we have some shofar players in our temple who can hold it like a minute. I would fall over if I tried to keep it that long, so we'll see how long I can go. But there's a service associated with a shofar, and there's 3 pieces to it. And in each piece, you sound all of the calls of the shofar. And there's a prayer that you say before you blow the shofar. The commandment is actually to hear the shofar. It's not to blow it. Someone needs to blow it clearly, but the point is to hear it, which then triggers that period of introspection. We also say a prayer at the beginning of every holiday, which is a prayer of Thanksgiving, and it's called the Shehachianu. And this is my personal favorite prayer. I've been known to say it just because we have friends over for dinner. It didn't have to be a religious experience. It's a prayer of Thanksgiving. And then the other thing to share with you is that the month we're actually starting, whereas with January 1st, January is thought of as the first month of the year, the month we're starting, Tishrei, right? It's called Tishrei. It's actually the 7th month of the year. And in fact, there are, I think, 4 New Years. There's the New Year of the trees, and there's a bunch of different New Years in Judaism. And so I don't actually know why we start the New Year in the 7th month, other than this passage from the Torah, which says, in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, there shall be a sacred assembly, a cessation from work, a day of commemoration proclaimed by the sound of the shofar. So that's where we get it. The shofar service has 3 sections to it, and as I mentioned, you do all the blasts. I'll just do them each once here, but the first section is called Zichronot, which is about memory, and so it's a time for you to think back on the past year or years of your life And we did a nice exercise within our temple where we put out a survey and people reported things that they remembered from their holidays growing up. Like what I put in there was we would all gather at my grandparents. We had an extended family of probably 25 people and multiple families, and we would keep score on which family had spilled more things during the dinner. So one of us kids would knock something over. Oh, that's one for the Levies. The second portion is called Machuyot, which is about spirituality and connectedness. It's about connecting to God. It's about connecting to each other. And so again, in this survey, people talked about that sort of thing. And where do you feel that spirituality? And I'll share. For me, I feel it in the outdoors. I'm an avid hiker, backpacker. There's a moment I still go back to in something like 1994, where I was sitting up on a cliff and it just rained, and there were clouds down the valley below me, and I just felt this. I don't know, call it a religious experience. I felt very close to the world. The third section is called Shofarot, and it's where you think about how you can move the world closer to one of peace and wholeness. And so these three sections organize your thoughts as you're hearing the shofar blast and preparing for the 10 days of awe. So I'll read the first prayer for the shofar, or the commandment to hear the shofar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who makes us holy through doing mitzvot and commands us to hear the voice of the shofar. And you probably heard this word, or you may have heard this word mitzvah, or mitzvah in Hebrew. The plural is mitzvot. It is not. It's often translated as a good deed, but it's actually more of a commandment. And a lot of the commandments are about doing good deeds. But it's a core part of Judaism to do mitzvot. The prayer of thanksgiving, Shechianu, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Shechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who has given us life, sustained us, and brought us to this special moment. So I'm going to so Gail will come over here and do the calls, and then I'll respond.
I did just want to say something about the calendar, our crazy Jewish calendar that Jeffrey brought up. In the ancient world, the year did start in the spring. That was very common, not just among the Jewish people. Nisan is the first month of the year, and that's the beginning of the year. And all the rules about when the holidays fall and what days of the week they're allowed to be on and so forth have to do with keeping Nisan in the spring. That's very crucial. It's also the birth of us as a people, as a nation, because that's the month in which the Jewish people were brought out of the land of Egypt from slavery and were consolidated into a people and eventually got their laws and everything. So it's the first month for a lot of reasons, but it's crazy. Okay, cover your ears, here we go. Tekiah. Shavarim. Ruah.
You've probably been seeing the news and reading the newspaper, so you have a lot of different versions of the life of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I was going through several of them and got different details from different people and put together this sort of brief summary. I'm sure that there are other stories that you've heard as well. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was an Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, the second woman and the first Jewish woman appointed to the court in U.S. history. She died Friday, September 18th, at her home in Washington, D.C. She was born March 13th, 1933 in Brooklyn, New York. and raised in a conservative Jewish tradition, learning Hebrew as a child. She moved away from strict religious observance after she was not allowed to join a minyan, a group of men, to mourn her mother's death when she was 17. Nevertheless, her Jewish identity remained important throughout her life. With an undergraduate degree from Cornell, she continued studies at Harvard as one of only 9 women in a law school class of about 500. Transferring to Columbia, she graduated first in her class, yet no New York law firm would hire her. She became a law professor at Rutgers and Columbia, director of the ACLU's Women's Rights Project, and judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, the nation's second most powerful federal court, before serving nearly 27 years on the Supreme Court. She and Sandra Day O'Connor apparently conspired, I think it was Ruth's idea, but they both chose to do it, was to distinguish themselves from the men with everybody in their black robes, that as women they would add collars to their robes. Ruth collected collars from around the world and had a favorite to wear when issuing a majority opinion and another for a dissent, which made her views crystal clear before she ever uttered a word. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a champion against gender-based discrimination. She said, "Gender-based discrimination hurts everyone, and equal justice under law requires all arms of government to regard women as persons equal in stature to men." And I try to teach through my opinions, through my speeches, how wrong it is to judge people on the basis of what they look like, color of their skin, whether they are men or women. She also said, "Fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you." And when I'm sometimes asked, she said, when will there be enough women on the Supreme Court? And I say, when there are 9, people are shocked. But there'd been 9 men, and nobody ever raised a question about that. And lastly, real change, enduring change, happens one step at a time. I have a friend, Linda Beatrice Brown, who's a poet, a writer, and I've known for many years, and she started sending these as email during this time of so much turmoil in our lives. And this one just arrived yesterday, and so I asked her if I could share it with you all, and she said, yes, please do. It's called "She Was Such a Woman," a tribute to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And it begins with a quote from Jan Richardson: "When there is no way, may there be ones who inspire you to see where the way would begin." There are women who are God's sisters, partners on the voyage. There are women who search, check the map, turn the compass, navigate. We women have a history. We have ancestors, sisters who searched the waters for our brothers, sons of spirit lost in time. Women who searched the waves for our daughters of spirit, floundering in the deep. We have reason to grieve, for we have lost such a woman insisting there is hope. There is a reason to keep up the search, to send up the flares, to shed light on the ocean of confusion. She was such a woman, peering into murky waters for the clear light of reason, for the treasure of justice, for the jewels of equity. She was such a woman, rescuing those becalmed on the sea of progress and abandoned on the shore. She was such a woman, now becoming a lighthouse herself, expecting much of us, expecting that we refuse to stop the search for doomed vessels, for castaways, She was such a woman, requiring much of us as we stand on the shore now, turning once more to mend the lifeboats, check the foam blooming on the gray-green waves, and set sail. I now turn this over to Gail, who will recite the mourner's Kaddish for us, both in Hebrew and in English.
Please join me in these words, if you know them, as we remember Justice Ginsburg. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divra hirutei v'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mavarach le'olam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yipa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, shmei v'kudashah, b'richu. La'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, Huya aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. And now I'll read it to you in English. Glorified and sanctified be God's great name throughout the world which he has created according to his will. May he establish his kingdom in your lifetime and during your days, within the life of the entire house of Israel, speedily and soon, and say, Amen. May his great name be blessed forever and to all eternity. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, adored and lauded be the name of the Holy One, blessed be he. Beyond all the blessings and hymns, praises and consolations that are ever spoken in the world, and say, Amen. May there be abundant peace from heaven and life for us and for all Israel and all mankind, and say, Amen. He who creates peace in his celestial heights, may he create peace for us and for all people all around the world, and say, Amen. Tekiah Gedolah.